Hey everyone, this is your stimulus check update, second stimulus check update, and stimulus package update for Thursday, September 17th. This video is for those of you on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, and VA benefits, and for anyone else that's wondering about the second stimulus check and about the stimulus package negotiations that are going on right now. Yesterday in my video, I talked about the Problem Solvers Caucus proposal, the stimulus deal that was released on Tuesday from a group of bipartisan members of the House of Representatives, 25 Democrats and 25 Republicans. This deal was made by that group who basically said, okay, our leaders aren't doing enough right now. Let's get together and let's actually get a proposal that's a good compromise for both sides. So that deal, I went over in detail yesterday in my video. So if you are interested in the details of that bill, you can go to my video yesterday. In addition to that, I'll leave a link to in the description below of the proposal itself so you can go through it if you want to. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the response from both the Democrats and Republicans regarding this proposal from the Problem Solvers Caucus, because I think this is one of the best proposals and the best compromise deals that we have seen since the CARES Act. And this one basically includes just about everything in a compromise form that both sides have been asking for quite a while. So I'm going to be talking about the response from both Nancy Pelosi and from President Trump and the Trump administration, as well as others. If this is your first time to my channel, my name is Justin and I give stimulus check updates and give financial advice. So if you haven't subscribed already, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified each and every time I upload a new video. And if you find this content helpful, I would appreciate it if you hit the like button so that YouTube will share it with others. So yesterday I went through the Problem Solvers Caucus plan, and here are some of the quick details, a quick overview of what's in that plan. First off, $1,200 stimulus checks for individuals, $500 for child dependents, $500 for those adult dependents, and it also said retroactive. And we assume that that means that they will receive $500 as part of this proposal, as well as $500 for missing out on the CARES Act proposal. So that would be $1,000 for those that are claimed as dependents. $450 per week unemployment benefit extension that would last for 8 weeks, and then after that, up to $600 per week, depending on how much the unemployed person was making on their previous job. In addition to that, it had student loan forbearance until the end of the year, an eviction moratorium. It also included provisions for rental assistance, and it also included the potential for a second stimulus check in March of 2021. This deal included a whole bunch of great things, and it also included a bunch of compromises to try and get both sides of the aisle to agree on this deal. So let's talk about what was said after this Problem Solvers Caucus deal was released and this proposal was released. First off, let's talk about Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, because she has been the one that hasn't wanted to budge from her $2.2 trillion number. She has been the one that's basically said, it's either $2.2 trillion or I'm not even going to meet and negotiate at all. While it wasn't specific to the deal about the Problem Solvers Caucus or the proposal from the Problem Solvers Caucus, Nancy Pelosi was interviewed by CNBC on Tuesday, and this is what she said regarding reaching a stimulus deal before the next recess in October. She said, quote, "We are committed to staying here until we have an agreement that meets the needs of the American people." So Nancy Pelosi is saying, just like she actually said before the previous recess, that the House of Representatives will stay and will be ready to vote and sign or vote on a deal for the next stimulus package before they go on their October recess. So this could be a good sign as long as Nancy Pelosi is willing to come down a little bit below that $2.2 trillion mark. There is no way, in my opinion, that the Republicans are going to come up to that $2.2 trillion number. So she's going to have to come down at some point. And one thing that I have seen recently is that Nancy Pelosi is starting to feel a lot of pressure from moderate Democrats that are in the House of Representatives. So I want to go over some of the things that have been said regarding the Problem Solvers Caucus proposal and regarding some of the leadership, meaning Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, as well as some of the others. So one of those that is trying to put pressure on Nancy Pelosi and on the other leadership to get a deal done is Max Rose. He's a Democrat from New York. And Max Rose was quoted as saying, Our allegiance is to our country, not to our party leaders, referring to Nancy Pelosi and other party leaders. And he also said what I've been saying all along, quote, to the leadership, we said this very simple message. It's time for you to stop playing games. Let's stop the charade. Let's stop this stupidity. Let's put the country first. Thank you, Max Rose, for saying what we've all been saying and what we've all been thinking. Let's put the country first. Let's put the American people first, and let's stop these political games, and let's stop digging our heels in and blaming the other side on both sides when you are both at fault at this point. So thank you, Max Rose, for saying that and putting pressure on Nancy Pelosi and on other leaders. There is another congresswoman that has been hearing from her constituents and those in her district basically saying, we need help, get a deal done. And this is what she had to say about the lack of a stimulus deal right now. Stephanie Murphy, she's a Democrat from Florida, and she said, pressures are mounting. When we go home and we talk to our constituents and they are telling us heartbreaking stories of having their electricity cut off or are standing in food lines, those stories are heartbreaking. And I hear that from you guys all the time in the comment section. You're worried about being evicted, you're worried about having your power shut off, and you're worried about having money for food. So I've heard it, and it's good to hear that some of the members of Congress are actually hearing that and trying to get some pressure put on Nancy Pelosi and on some of the other leaders to actually get a deal done so that we can get help to you guys and to the American people in general. This is still Stephanie Murphy, that Democrat from Florida. She said, you are seeing a level of anxiety rise within the members for there to be a deal, which is a good sign that they're starting to see a bunch of people in the House and the Senate that are saying, hey, we need to get a deal done. Nancy, come on, let's get a deal done. And she continued, for there to be progress toward getting the deal done. And hopefully with that increased pressure, we will start to see negotiations start anew and start moving our way towards that. So, Stephanie Murphy, thank you once again for putting pressure on Pelosi and on the other leaders to get a deal done. Really, the American people are hurting and they are struggling. They do need help. So thank you for putting that pressure on and for reminding them that they work for they work for the American people. They don't work for themselves. They don't work for their own political gain. So that is just a few of many that are actually putting pressure on Nancy Pelosi to get back to the negotiating table. Mark Meadows and Steven Mnuchin have both said, hey, we're ready to meet with you again, Nancy Pelosi, as soon as you're ready to come down a little bit from that $2.2 trillion number. That $2.2 trillion number is what she has stuck with and she does not want to budge from for the next stimulus package. So some of the Democrat leaders, including Nancy Pelosi, feel like the Problem Solvers Caucus proposal kind of undermined their ability to negotiate their deal and to stay with that $2.2 trillion number. A source told Fox News, quote, the Problem Solvers Caucus's play put Democrats in disarray and clearly undermined Schumer and Pelosi in such negotiations. Pelosi was not happy that 25 Democrats met and actually brokered that proposal with 25 Republicans. And I don't understand why I understand why she's upset. However, it seems like this Problem Solvers Caucus is about the only one that's doing things right now to actually come together and come to a compromise. The proposal that they put out was a fantastic compromise and actually compromised from both sides. But Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to budge from that $2.2 trillion mark, and she felt like this proposal actually kind of undercut what she's trying to do. So I don't think was very happy about it. But once again, while she is the Speaker of the House, she is not the entire House of Representatives, and she does not speak for the American people either. So hopefully this pressure on Nancy Pelosi and on Mitch McConnell even, this pressure will lead to them coming back to the negotiating table and come up with a deal that they can both agree to. So on the other side of the aisle, from the Republican side and from the White House and the Trump administration, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, he talked with CNBC and he said that he is, quote, probably more optimistic about the potential for a deal in the last 72 hours than I have been in the last 72 days. So Mark Meadows, he is showing some optimism and maybe with this $1.5 trillion deal, he sees that there are people and there are representatives on both sides that are willing to negotiate and willing to compromise. And I think this $1.5 trillion deal was a step in the right direction. While it isn't finalized and it's just a proposal and it was just basically kind of an outline of the things that this group could agree upon and could compromise on, it is a really good starting point to renew negotiations. And I think, like I've said a bunch of times, it's a good compromise from both sides of the aisle. And Mark Meadows also added, with regards specifically to the Problem Solvers Caucus proposal, he said that he called it serious thought for consideration, and also said, I think it at least provides a foundation for us to come back to the table. And I agree with that. I think at the very least, it's basically a starting point. Say, okay, Pelosi, Meadows, Schumer, and Mnuchin, get back to that negotiating table, start with this Problem Solvers Caucus deal and go from there and say, okay, well, this is something I can't move on. This is something I can move on, and work from that deal, because it really is a good compromise. So President Trump did what he does, and he tweeted out yesterday regarding the lack of a stimulus deal. And of course, he did what he does, and he called out the Democrats, but he also kind of called out the Republicans as well. He tweeted out, first, Democrats are heartless. They don't want to give stimulus payments to people who desperately need the money. And he continues, go for much higher numbers, Republicans. It all comes back to the USA anyway, one way or another. So while President Trump took one of his usual jabs at the Democrats, like he does, he also called for Republicans to come up from their number. Republicans, as you know, proposed a couple weeks ago a $500 skinny bill, and that $500 billion skinny bill did not include stimulus checks for individuals. It didn't go any further than at least trying to vote to see if it could move forward, and it didn't pass that vote. And previously, at the end of July, they also talked about a $1 trillion stimulus bill that would have included stimulus checks for individuals. So when President Trump is saying, hey, Republicans, come up from the number that you're calling for, I think he's regarding to probably the $500 billion skinny bill, but he's also probably saying, hey, even your $1 trillion number, you could probably come up from that. And we have heard previously from, I believe it was Stephen Mnuchin, said that President Trump could sign a bill up to about $1.5 trillion. So it sounds like President Trump would be on board with something around the same number as the Problem Solvers Caucus proposal. Okay, so that's kind of what's been said from both the Democrats and the Republicans regarding the Problem Solvers Caucus proposal. And while they are still far apart, I think that this proposal at least kind of got people thinking about negotiations again and thinking about talking again and getting back to the table. We are kind of in crunch time right now, as we only have a couple weeks before their next recess. Nancy Pelosi did say that they would, hold off on that recess unless they can actually reach a stimulus deal. But she said that before the last recess as well, so I'm not going to put a whole lot of weight into those comments. I do hope that Mitch McConnell and the other Republicans can come up from their between $500 billion and $1 trillion number and come closer to that $1.5 trillion number. And I hope Nancy Pelosi can budge from her $2.2 trillion number and come down closer to the $1.5 trillion number as well. We are still a little ways off, and the sides, are still not agreeing on a lot of things. But this Problem Solvers Caucus proposal was a great thing, and I think both sides are now feeling the pressure, especially from those that are up for re-election and worried about losing their seats in the House and in the Senate. And so this, I'm hopeful, will move them towards a deal and move them towards negotiations and get a deal done in the next couple weeks. If they can do a deal within the next couple weeks, Stephen Mnuchin has said that the stimulus checks could go out within a week of President Trump signing a deal. So if they can get a deal done in the next couple weeks, then about a week after that deal is done, we could see stimulus checks. But like I've been saying, this was a proposal from the Problem Solvers Caucus. It's not a done deal. There are still a lot of negotiations that have to happen, but I do feel like this is probably the best proposal, the best compromise we have seen since the original CARES Act that was approved. So I do appreciate each one of you watching. This has been your stimulus check for Thursday, September 17th. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you again soon.